Hello, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Europa Rediviva. The Romanian elites are at war with their own country. Romania is like an organism suffering from an autoimmune disease. The network of foreign agents is making the immune system, so the state authority, let's say, target the self cells, so the cells of the organism, the healthy cells, whereas they evade targeting completely. What happened in the aftermath of the drone incident from the Black Sea, from the Romanian port of Constanța, was that the Romanian authorities, the Romanian military authorities that had already been intimidated by the indictment of the top generals on some corruption charges, which are just ridiculous, even if you take them at face value, even if you trust the prosecutor and you agree that those generals could have done this thing with supplementing the number of places in a civil university to get their children to study tuition free. But anyway, so the top Romanian generals were indicted for corruption and publicly humiliated. They were called to this anti-corruption prosecutor's office, which is under the control of the United States ever since its establishment. And they were subjected to this public humiliation ritual. So-called civil society activists were there to shout at them, "You are corrupt," whatever. And after this public media humiliation, after this public shaming, they had to handle this Ukrainian drone incident. And of course, they were very shy about it. They could not they could not have a very firm position because they had already been discredited. So the military head, the chief of the Romanian army, and several other top generals, so the structure leading the Romanian army, was successfully decapitated in terms of public credibility. And so they gave some pieces of information out into the public domain. They were not very convincing, not very coherent. And then the communicators of Ukraine stepped in. Romania is this environment where the bulk of the elite, the bulk of the educated public, the one that reads news and so on, and that considers itself informed, has a complete disregard for the Romanian position, for the Romanian point of view, and I must say also for the Romanian national interest, because they never lose an opportunity to show their complete despise and to make fun of the Romanian sovereigntists, to make fun of the idea of national sovereignty, and to basically berate anybody who says that Romania should not go further into being a colony as it is now, and it should have autonomy upon its strategic decisions. It should have a national economy. It should have a country running for its own citizens rather than for corporate powers of the foreign capital or for foreign military interests and so on. So we have a phenomenon of complete elite capture in which the most credible voices in Romanian society among the educated public are those that are paid from abroad, are those that are either stipended by the United States through all sorts of ways, all sorts of grants, transatlantic scholarships and these things, or directly by Ukraine. So we have this phenomenon that on the topic of Ukraine and on the topic of Romania's military and on the topic of basically anything that remotely has to do with Ukraine, Ukraine recruited two lowlifes, two people who only finished high school. They have no degrees in any professional field. They are, one of them spent some years in a Swedish prison for fraud. The other one is a recreational weed smoker. This is what they did with their lives. And they were recruited by Ukraine to disseminate the Ukrainian point of view, which they successfully do. So even though they have no professional qualifications, the only area of expertise they have is the Ukrainian point of view, because this is what they receive from Ukraine. They are agents of Ukraine, they brag about it, they received state awards from Ukraine and so on and so forth, and they disseminate the message of Ukraine. Of course, when they speak out in public, when they disseminate messages into the Romanian information space, they do not put a disclaimer. We are agents of Ukraine, and this is the Ukrainian point of view. This is what Ukraine wants from us. No, they somehow claim that this is an objective assessment of the situation, so not necessarily the point of view of Ukraine and what is in the Ukrainian interest. They convey it like this, and they have the most credibility among the Romanian elites, the educated class. So of course that the Romanian state, the Romanian communicators, the army, the intelligence services, everybody who serves the national interest, at least on paper, is intimidated by these people, because once they say something that contradicts the narrative that Ukraine sent to these people to disseminate, they have a wave of accusations against them. They have a wave of public intimidation. So Romanian public opinion has been engineered in such a way in these years so as to, of course, at least the elite public opinion, and this has a lot to do with what I said in a previous episode about the anti-national nature of the Romanian elites. They have always been anti-national, and apparently not even modernity changed that. So from feudal times, when being Romanian was equivalent to being a serf and they spoke a different language, until today, they always serve the center of prestige and despise their own population. So what is happening now is that the Romanian elites, the Romanian educated public, are plugged in to the Ukrainian narrative, and it doesn't matter what kind of attack, what kind of false flag incident Ukraine orchestrates on the territory of Romania. They are successful in convincing the Romanian audience, the Romanian public, of the Ukrainian position to be the true one. After so many years, after 4 years of having this constant loop of pieces of news, if you want to call them that, even though the majority were fake, but pieces of information in the public space in Romania, pieces of intoxication, if you want, describing Ukraine only in positive terms, describing Ukraine as objectively moral, objectively good, everything that Ukraine says is objectively true and everything. So disregarding the whole context in which Ukraine is a country at war, and it also has to carry out information operations, and it has to communicate strategically, and communication is part of the tools employed for winning the war, and so on and so forth. No. Essentially, the Romanian media and the Romanian so-called civil society aligned itself behind Ukraine in spreading any kind of narrative, be it fake or not, being completely outrageous and unbelievable, it didn't matter, and to spread equal amounts of bad narratives about Russia, so, and about all the countries that, and all the officials that might question the Ukrainian point of view. So once they demonized Russia to a successful extent, then they started associating with Russia anybody who casts doubts on the Ukrainian point of view. And this is how they managed to capture public opinion in the favor of Ukraine. So now I would say my assessment, coming from Romania and being in this pro-Ukrainian bubble, I would say that that the Ukrainian information operation of the territory of Romania succeeded. So now Ukraine can even launch a deliberate attack, and admitting that it was deliberate, and the Romanian educated public, so to say, so the people carrying diplomas, that part of society, will go for the reasoning of Ukraine. They will publicly defend the necessity of that operation. What happened in the case of the Constanța explosion was that these public communicators of Ukraine came out to say that a ship that was part of Russia's shadow fleet, that was under international sanctions, was docked or had been recently docked in the port of Constanța, and this was actually a legitimate target for the maritime drone that Ukraine used. So they essentially come and defend a deliberate attack against Romanian infrastructure, in Romanian territorial waters by Ukraine, by saying that we were kind of asking for it, that there was this shadow fleet, this ship of the Shadow Fleet under the pavilion of the Marshall Islands, which was under the international sanctions of Ukraine, so under Ukrainian international sanctions. Essentially, Ukraine reserves its right to strike any ship that it considers itself to be that it considers associated with the Russian fleet, even though it's a ship under a different flag that just docks to a Russian port at some point. The state of Ukraine reserves the right to consider such a ship part of Russia's Shadow Fleet and to unilaterally sanction it. So there are no sanctions by the UN Security Council. They're just the unilateral sanctions announced by Ukraine. And Ukraine reserves its right to strike such a ship in not only in the international waters, but also in the waters of any country, of any allied country even, and even in a port belonging to an allied country. So essentially what these communicators went out to say publicly is that Ukraine reserves the right to strike any kind of ship docked in a Romanian port that they consider to be associated with Russia. And these public communicators that are either these communicators of Ukraine or the general communicators of the US Embassy, they were scolding the Romanian authorities. So they did not say this as a as a means of attributing intent to the attack, which it obviously was. I mean, if they say Ukraine deliberately attacked because we were hosting a ship of the Russian Phantom Fleet, this sounds like an accusation towards Ukraine. No, they were saying it the other way around. They were saying it as an accusation towards Romania, an accusation that Romania still hosts in its harbors ships that are under no Russian pavilion. They're under various other pavilions, but that Ukraine deems legitimate targets. And if Ukraine deems legitimate targets, Ukraine reserves its right to bomb Constanța. Ukraine reserves the right to bomb the port of Constanța. And these Romanian communicators, I guess they have Romanian citizenship, I don't know, but these Romanian language communicators say that this is a very legitimate thing to do. And that Romania essentially makes itself a legitimate target of Ukraine by hosting oil tankers that are bound for Russian ports or something. So essentially, these people are in the military service of Ukraine in the information space. They act not as Romanian citizens. They act like Ukrainian citizens. They act like agents of the Ukrainian army, ensuring the objectives of Ukraine against those of its own country. Because, of course, the interests of Romania, among others, are not to be bombed, right? Not to have its trade disrupted, not to have critical port facilities exploded, and so on. I would say, I don't know. I'm no longer in touch with the Romanian elite discourse that has become so self-hating that whenever you say Romanian interest, they automatically jump like electrocuted and say, "Oh, that's Russian propaganda. There's no such thing as Romanian interest. It's a lie. Where did you read it? In the Pravda?" So I've lost touch with people espousing this discourse, but they are unfortunately in the majority in Romania. And I'm not sure you can even convince them anymore that it's not in the Romanian interest to have Romanian citizens dying or Romanian property being destroyed and so on, if it favors the national interest of Ukraine. I don't know if you can still convince the Romanian elite of this. They are so mesmerized and so captured mentally and emotionally by Ukraine that they're willing to go so far as to have these public communicators, which are very popular in Romania, say something like this. Say something like, well, we were kind of asking for it, we were hosting legitimate targets of Ukraine, so this is what you get. So when the level of self-hate in the Romanian public has reached such a level that it willingly sacrifices itself for the interest of another country, what is there to expect? I have described this mechanism for the past years. I've described it mostly in Romanian, in podcasts, on Facebook posts, and then I quit it all, and now I'm just doing it in English for the international public. I've described this mechanism through which Ukraine is encroaching on Romania in order to use the Romanian resources, the most important one being the human one, which has not been used yet, but which is about to, using these resources in its war against Russia. How did I come to this conclusion? Did Putin tell me? No, it was not necessary. You just have to use your brain. And this is why many people in Romania are upset with the fact that I keep on saying that we are idiots. It's true that we are idiots because there is some sort of conservation instinct that should kick in. There is some sort of... These things are not rocket science. The fact that Ukraine is at war and Ukraine needs resources and Ukraine communicates strategically to obtain those resources, this is not rocket science. You don't put rockets into space by having this level of cognition. This level of cognition is just average intelligence. You don't need to be a genius to understand this. But this never caught on. So from the start of the war until today, this position is considered a pro-Russian one. It is not considered a pro-Romanian one. It is not considered a legitimate, objective description of the facts. No, there's this religion of Ukraine worship, and everything that Ukraine says and does is holy, and we should bow to it. And whoever doesn't want to bow is blasphemous, is a traitor to this inverted national cause, because, as I said previously, the nature of the elites is to worship countries from the outside, to worship the center of prestige, and to despise the people who do not share their religion, who do not share their worship of the said country. So right now, people are labeled as Putinists who want to stand up for national interest. And I'm pretty sure they will even be criminally convicted in the future, because no link with Russia is necessary. What is necessary is to have the standpoint of the national interest. The national interest of Romania has already been successfully conflated in this very successful information operation carried out by Ukraine. Romanian national interest has been conflated with treason and with helping Russia. So essentially, if you do not help Ukraine up to the point of sacrificing yourself, you are a Russian agent. This is the level in which Ukrainian strategic communication has led the elite part of the Romanian public. So the thinkers, the policymakers, this is where public discourse has gone in Romania. So the fact that I'm saying this is not an anti-Ukrainian statement. On the other hand, it's a recognition of the merits of their work. So any country in Ukraine, in Ukraine's place, would have done the same. It would have carried out these information operations in order to gain control of the public of another country, in order to suck out the resources from there, budgetary allocations, weapons, and finally soldiers. This is the logical thing to do. I realized this just by thinking, okay, what could Ukraine try? And I saw, okay, it might try this, because the Romanian elites are so anti-national that they would actually play ball. They would actually go along with it. And they did. So kudos to Ukraine. They have all my respect. The information officers behind this intelligence operation carried out on the territory of Romania have all my respect. My compatriots do not have all my respect, because I've tried to argue publicly and privately to the people I knew that this is what was going on, and Ukraine was slowly capturing first the information space in Romania, subsequently the political space. So now it is not possible to be a politician and to be a member of government if you do not share the point of view of Ukraine, if you do not advance the interests of Ukraine. There's no other legitimate goal that you can pursue. If by mistake you try to pursue the national interest of Romania, you automatically get labeled. there's going to be a public outcry against you, you're going to be labeled a Putin puppet, and so on. So Ukraine has managed to successfully confiscate Romanian information space. Then Ukraine managed to confiscate successfully Romanian politics, the part that gets into power. Because, okay, yeah, there are Ukraine skeptics in the opposition that are deemed illegitimate by the state. They are deemed foreign agents. So we have a reverse process. The people who want to do things in the national interest are deemed foreign agents, and the people who govern Romania in the interest of foreign countries are considered the only legitimate solution. So this is why you have all of these contortions. Now, of course, as I said in a previous video, this makeshift government that represents nobody will be sworn in, because there is a situation of exception, a situation of crisis. So everything will accelerate, and a patriotic majority will be found from all the parties in order to vote in this government. And so Ukraine successfully dominates Romanian information space. If you say something in Romanian that contradicts the Ukrainian point of view, that's opposition speech, and that's not tolerated. In politics, they have this vehicle called the Union Save Romania. It's an offshoot of Renew Europe in Romania. And one of these two operatives, who has a high school diploma and is invited even on state media to speak as a military expert and as a geopolitical expert, and to basically tell the objective truth to the audiences. This guy is a prominent member of this party, and he ran for president. He came in, he was runner-up, but he is a prominent figure in Romanian civil society. He has received awards for public dialogue from the most important civic organization from the 1990s. So Ukraine holds in Romania the top communicators. Some of them are political figures as well, and Ukraine has control over the governmental majority through these people. This party also appointed the most important ministers, which are the foreign minister, the economy minister, the Minister of Defense, and this party also managed to have the president of Romania voted in. So the former president of the party who created the party in the first place and brought it into parliament is now the president of Romania. And they're all bound to the interests of Ukraine, obviously, and they don't even hide it. Everything that they do is according to the Ukrainian interest and according to the Ukrainian point of view, and they actively repress any dissenting point of view, because national interest is considered treason. So this is where I was trying to get to, the fact that Romania has become an organism that is fatally suffering from an autoimmune disease, and its antibodies, so the military structures, the intelligence structures, the media, everything that has some sort of power in Romania is dominated by the autoantibodies. So the antibodies that ignore attacking the foreign agents and attack and repress the bearers of the national interest. This is what I wanted to tell you. If you like what I do, like, share, subscribe. If you want to support me financially, you'll find the link in the channel. And until next time, take care.